guys. In this video, I'd like to give you an example as to when to use counting and when to use the metronome in the learning process for a piece. So in this example, I am using Burgmüller's Harmony of the Angels, and this piece features triplets really prominently. And so the way I count triplets is I say 1 olet, 2 olet, 3 olet, 4 olet, right? So when you're first in the learning process, you'll want to count before you can play the piece steady enough to actually use a metronome, okay? So the metronome and the counting aren't really stepping on one another. You're using them for different ends. And I feel like counting makes sense earlier in the learning process, and the metronome works better later in the learning process. So if you were playing this piece and you were playing in a way to capture all of the details, you probably would be playing really slowly, and counting out loud really helps. So you might do something like this. 1 olet, 2 olet, 3 olet, 4 olet, 1 olet, 2 olet, 3, and so on, right? And this makes sense because later on you get to a lot of parts that you're just gonna miss because there's like weird changes in direction and weird notes that you're not expecting. You're just gonna miss them if you're not going slow enough on your first pass, okay? So for example, in the B section, it might look like this. 1 olet, 2 olet, 3 olet, 4 olet, 1 olet, 2 olet, 3 olet, 4 olet, 1 olet, 2 olet, 3 olet, 4 olet, olet, 2 olet, 3 olet, 4 olet, 1, right? Those details, and so on. Obviously, I'm going really slow. So you might wonder, well, what's the game plan here when you're actually practicing a piece like this? Well, you want to get it to where you can play that steady enough to be able to use the metronome, and you want to ultimately shift towards the main pulse for the piece. So in this situation, I'm leaning heavily on my subdivision, and I might try to bring it to like 120 or something. That's actually a little slower than I was playing, but I was just working on this with a student, and that's what was necessary to get through this part. So that might sound like this. 1 olet, 2 olet, 3 olet, 4 olet, 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 1, and so on, okay? Now, we're at 120 equals the triplet. For each individual triplet, we're at 120 BPM. So how do you square that with being able to actually feel the quarter note pulse in a piece like this? Well, since there are 3 triplets to a quarter note pulse, you need to be able to raise the speed of the triplet to be fast enough where when you divide it by 3, that quarter note is going to be fast enough where you can hear it, okay? And since I feel like the line of where we can judge like the spacing between beats, the minimum for like a lot of students tends to be around 60 from what I can tell. I call this the speed floor. They tend to not be able to feel a pulse consistently below 60. In some cases it's higher, it's 70 or so, right? Okay, well then if we're playing this piece and we need to be able to feel the quarter note equals 60, that means you need to be able to bring each individual triplet up to 180 before you can do that conversion, okay? So that's what would make sense. So you would work incrementally from 120 to 180, and then you'd make the switch. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and show you 180 now and save us the time. That's going to sound like this. 1 olet, 2 olet, 3 olet, 4 olet, 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 1. Okay? So now we will change our metronome back down to 60 and do an example of basically the same thing, except for now I'm going to feel all of the subdivisions and the metronome's just keeping my bigger pulse. So 1 olet, 2 olet, 3 olet, 4 olet, 1 olet, 2 olet, 3 olet, 4 olet, 1 olet, 2 olet, 3, 4, 1 olet, 2 olet, 3 olet, 4 olet, 1 olet, 2 olet, 3 olet, 4 olet, 1, 2, and so on, right? So now that we're at 60, now that we've done that conversion, we're no longer reliant on the subdivision, we can start raising our general pulse and our general speed for the piece and get it to where we want it, okay? So I don't think 152 is necessarily where we might want this, but what if we wanted it about 100 or so? That would sound like this. 1 olet, 2 olet, 3 olet, 4 olet, 1 olet, 2 olet, 3 olet, 4 olet, 1 olet, 2 olet, 3 olet, 4 olet, 1 olet, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, right? And you go a little faster if you want. I'm just showing you through the learning process. This is what I would be doing. A small section, raising the tempo, using my metronome. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, right? And of course, I could still subdivide that. I just have to speak it really fast. 1 olet, 2 olet, 3 olet, 4 olet, 1 olet, 2 olet, 3 olet, 4 olet, 1 olet, 2 olet, 3, 4, 1. Basically, when you go slow, you want to subdivide. And when you go fast, you want to zoom out and feel the bigger beat. So that's just an example of how to walk through the learning process in something like this. And of course, if you want to be able to speak like really, really quickly, it's a lot of practice and maybe a couple of coffees. Anyway, hopefully you found this helpful. I'll do a lot more things like this where I'm explaining how to count, how to use the metronome, and where to basically use one or the other or both in future videos. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.